in every single way that we can, and to study and understand what global warming and the ice ages are, because they're linked together, if you haven't figured that one out yet. I don't think the Republicans have figured that one out yet. But there's always global warming before an ice age, every single time. You still can't hear in the back? I can't hear you either. Maybe we need to get a technician in the back so they can hear what you're talking about and you can work together on it. Okay, which I think is happening. Well, I hope they can fix this as soon as possible. I'm not going to get into what's really important for a few minutes, so don't worry. Anyway, in my own life, I have been working on all kinds of levels besides the environmental issues that I got into in the 60s. And we were just blown away by the reaction from the governments and everything to what we were trying to do. You would think that if you're going to try to help your planet, they would help you, but they don't. And that's just the hurdles that we've been up against for many, many, many years. It's all changing right now. So, besides environmental issues and these kind of things, I have been tracking with and studying almost every single thing you can imagine, from UFOs and ETs and ITs and alternative forms of healing and medicine, alternative forms of energy. I have witnessed over 40 zero-point free energy machines that work perfectly. And it's all in place. They still won't let us do it. But that's going to change. Everything's going to change as you change. This is the way it is. You're seeing it in Egypt right now, and it's going to keep going. It's not going to stop because the global brain of internet is getting stronger and clearer. It's literally a global brain. As soon as we get into the global heart.
What is a global heart?
Which is in the center of the earth. And when we understand what that is and we connect to that, it's over. It's over for all these, for all the governments and religions and everything else that are trying to stop this, because we're going to know. And this is just a matter of time. And I don't think that time is very long from now. So I have notes. I have to look up my notes. It's a lot of notes.
I'm ready for you.
Okay. Yeah, I could do what Sarah Palin does. I'm terrible. I know. Okay, I wanted to be clear. I've tried to not hide who I am or where I'm from and what my purpose is here. And I'm not going to do that here either. I am not human. I am an ET. I'm a multi-dimensional ET. I am also a multi-dimensional IT. And there's a big difference. ITs are interterrestrial, from inside the Earth. I am both inside the Earth and extraterrestrial from that. And the world I come from does not have any stars and planets. It's a whole different way of existing. But you are all going to know what this is. Because as you will find out if I have time to do it all, this is where we're going. You're going to go where I came from. Oh. And I am part of the Great White Brotherhood. I am intimately connected with the first and the last order. The first order is Alpha and Omega, Order of Melchizedek. And I am Melchizedek. I am not a priest. And there's lots of Melchizedeks. I'm not unusual. In this galaxy alone, there's over 10 million of them. It's anybody who has been able to go through all 144 dimensional levels and be stable. That's basically all it takes.
Stable? What's stable?
And then life says, aha, there's one of those guys that went through all that stuff, and it takes you and it uses you. And so I just get used all the time, and I don't mind, because eventually you find out that there is nothing to do but to be of service. There just simply isn't anything else. That's all there is. And you're going to be faced with this too. As you begin to understand more and more and more, and you become this light out into the world, which is what happens, you can't just hold it here and sit in your bedroom and watch television. I mean, you have to share it. It's just this law of the universe. You have to give back, and you'll find a way to do that. And you're going to find a huge audience as time goes on here, because people want to know, and by that time you will know what it is that you need to teach. I'm also connected to the last order of the Great White Brotherhood, which is the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays, which is the geographical location is in Bolivia, South America. They have a very specific purpose. The ones in the middle, there's 70 orders in the middle. I don't even know them all. I don't even know who they are. It's not my job. Okay, I've explained that. I'm not going to use any images today, except for, well, if they want, we can't. I was going to put the Flower of Life up here, but it hasn't happened yet. Oh, it was? Oh, there it is. Okay. I was just going to leave that one thing there because in this, really silently, is everything. It is literally everything there is. There is nothing else. And I will try to explain that. But what I want you to do today is just use your imagination and not to get involved in images from screens, because we are so involved with television and internet and all these things that it distracts from what we're trying to do, because we're going to try to go within to understand who we are. The name of this talk is Reality is Consciousness. Now, if you're just beginning, that is kind of like a mystery. What does that mean? That the reality, this room, is actually part of your consciousness. And we'll slowly unfold what that means. If you understand what that reality is consciousness, the moment you really truly understand that, your evolution is going to skyrocket really, really fast, because you've just hit the chord of the universe, and everything that you, from that moment forth, is just a very rapid unfolding. It just happens. So when I talk about reality, I only need this for a few more minutes. When I talk about reality, what I'm talking about is that looking at the universe and all the stars and planets and galaxies and quasars and all the stuff that's out there, and the planets and the planet Earth that we're on, I'm talking about that. And I'm also talking about a lot more. There are many, many other worlds that we can't see. There's far more that we can't see than we can see. And I'm not talking about doing instruments that can look at X-rays or microwaves or anything else like this, parts of the electromagnetic field. I mean, there are other worlds, literally, and they all intersect each other at the same point, which is any point, anywhere. Every single universe in the world intersects through that single point in the universe. And so there just is whatever there is. And that's what I mean by the entire thing, all of it, all of the existence. And then on top of that, there are universes that no one knows about at all. I'm not talking about other dimensional levels or parallel worlds or any of those kinds of ideas. There are entire universes, more than you could count in your lifetime, that are not connected to this one in any way at all, except one. And that is in the tiny sacred place of the heart. It's the only place you can connect to them. There is nothing out here that connects to these other places. Okay, is that better? I need to have a strap around my head and hold this up here like this. Okay, all right, I'll hold it up here. So far we haven't got it. And so it's going to take me a few minutes to explain really what I'm talking about when I say that reality is consciousness. I'm not going to get there yet, but we will very soon. Right now, most of us, not everybody, I'm sure, in this room, but most of us are living in polarity consciousness. This was a creation from when we fell, from my way of seeing, about 13,000 years ago, a little less. And when we fell, we came out, if you want to talk about it in dimensional levels, we fell from the fourth dimension into the third dimension. And we came down about almost a full octave and a half down into this place. This is a very, very dark place that we're in right now. That's one way of looking at it. There's another way that's a lot simpler. Babies can understand it. All we did was move from our heart to our brain. We just made a little journey from here and up to here. And when we got here, it took us a while to figure things out, but we still haven't really figured them out. And in polarity consciousness, we see everything as good or bad or black or white or male or female, etc. And we are about to leave that. We're about to completely and totally, 100% drop it, and we're going to go into unity consciousness, where we are still in the polarity, but we're not of it. We understand it from another level, and we end up in the middle between them. We're not black or white, we're gray, we're right in the middle. We don't really perceive it in the same kind of way that we do right now. And this is where ascension, this is the first step of ascension. At that point, we are going to transition from the third dimension into the fourth dimension, and we're going to go specifically into the seventh, eighth, and ninth overtone of the fourth dimension. Depending on how we perceive things, we will end up in one of those three worlds. And then from there, these bodies are going to mutate. If you noticed, the Egyptians spent a long time trying to get their bodies from here to the next world through their mummification and all the things that they were doing. And the Christians, which came out of Egypt, they're doing the same thing through resurrection, trying to bring their body with us. Why were they doing that? The reason is because this body is a baby on the next level. You must have your body with you. That's all you need. You don't need anything else, just your body. And it could even be really in bad shape. You could be missing arms and legs and all kinds of stuff. It doesn't matter. Just get there with whatever you got left over. Because once you get there, you're going to find that you have total control of creation. You will be able to fix that in a blink of an eye and turn it all back to the way it should be. And actually, people, when they get there, they spend a lot of time. They're so fascinated with it. They get their body all fixed up, and they go, well, maybe I'll kind of look like this. And they'll change their looks to something else and be taller, shorter, or I'll be this or that. And they spend time doing that for a while until they realize, well, this is boring. And then they look for the next thing, and it automatically starts unfolding. In the same way, when you were born here as a little baby, and when you were born here as a little baby, the first thing you started doing is growing. You started getting bigger. And that's exactly what's going to happen on this next level of existence. This body is going to start growing. And the females are going to get to be about 10 to 12 feet high. And males are going to be about 14 to 16 feet high. And you're going to have this giant head with this huge brain in it. And then when you get fully adult, which happens extremely fast compared to what we do now, it only takes about 2 years. When you get into that level, then everything makes sense. You have the brain power and understanding to know what you can't really understand now. You understand, which puts you in position to go to the next level. And we are going to go through every single level. And I want to talk about what this is. The reason I'm here, and there are a lot of other people besides the Ascended Masters that are here. There are people coming from all over the universe right now. And many of you, if not almost all of you, are one of those people. How many people know that you're not really human? That was about 20% or so. And how many people remember where you came from? Really do remember? Okay, it's usually a little less. Well, where do I want to go with this? So here, what is going on is that the universe, let me put it this way. The Mayans, which are talking about 2012, which is all the cycles of the earth and the sun and the moon and all these different other planets around us that are affecting it. It is these cycles that are all coming to a close on December 21st, 2012. But there is another cycle. And the Mayans don't know this, the Hopi don't know this, the Zulu don't know this, the Kogi might know this. I haven't actually asked them that question. The Owakos might know this. I don't think that the Waitaha or other, I don't think anybody else would maybe know this, and the Tibetans might know this. But there is the largest cycle in existence is ending at the same time. It's changing everything. This is the reason why the Greys, when they were here, began to abduct people. The 5.5 million people that were or more that were taken aboard those ships. And the reason that happened is they were not involved in this. They came in here in very early 1900s, about 1910 or so. And they were on another project. They were trying to solve something that we were doing. And right in the middle of that, right in whenever it was, I don't know, it was the early 1980s or somewhere in there, they became aware of that this big cycle was going to end. It was a huge problem for them because they're a technological civilization. They gave up their emotional body, their feminine side, and in so doing that, they were not able to make the transition. What is about to happen is that we're going to go from an octave of universes, which is what we're in right now, to another octave of universes. In other words, this universe we're in right now is very soon simply not going to exist. It won't be here. The Earth is not going to be here. It won't exist. It may be used again sometime, but very soon it won't be here. It's not what you think it is. It's not even close to what most people think it is. We think it's real, but it isn't real. It doesn't exist in the way that we think it exists. It is part of our consciousness. It's part of our awareness. It's a projection from within us and from a very specific place in our body, which we'll talk about very soon. And so that's going to disappear, and we're going to reappear in an entirely new world, and we're going to be babies cubed. We won't know anything. We're going to be completely confused for a while. It's going to feel good though. It's going to feel great, but we're going to lose all of this. What we now know is not going to be applicable in this new world. We're going to have to start over. And I hope I'm not going too fast, because I know that this is a big step that I'm talking about. The Greys could not get through this because it means that between these dimensional worlds, not just between the third dimension or the eighth dimension or the 100th dimension or anything like that, but between an entire octave to another one, there is something between them that is very interesting. It's a void space that does not allow anything physical to be in it. So no physical thing can get through. The only thing that can get through is spirit. And spirit has to have certain relationships within itself and around itself. You'll know exactly what to do when that happens. But you can't take anything physical with you. And for the Greys, that was a huge problem because they're a technological society. Their spaceships can go into all 144 dimensional levels, but they can't go into the 145th. They can't get over. And when they realized that the cycle was going to end, I'm sure that they actually probably felt something anyway for the first time. Because it was a problem. And that's why they abducted everybody and got them onto, and took our emotional body and their mental body, their memories and their wisdom from their point of view, and combined them into another body. That's who Bashar is, who is here now. He's a great guy. He's real, and I'm glad that he's here. He's coming from about 300 years in the future, and his example for us is important. But he comes from, if you were to actually see Bashar in his actual shape, it would be very different than a human being or a gray. They're very tall and skinny. But we become very good friends in the future because we have the same emotional body. They're a lot smarter than we are, but, but once we get into fourth dimensional consciousness, we equate, we become equal on those levels. So, I've been kind of rambling on, so I'm going to go back to my list again. Okay, I've come to the place where I don't need this list anymore, and I would like to, before I begin talking about something that I feel really is important to you guys, and that something that you really need to understand and to know to progress and further into ascension. I'm going to use a little NLP on you right now. Wow. Now it is. Everybody just close your eyes for a moment.
Is that NLP?
Just relax. Feel yourself move into your heart if you can, if you know how. And we all know how. You can receive anything easier when you're in your heart than you can in your brain. Tomorrow we'll take the time to lead you into these sacred spaces. And we don't have time to do that today. So what we're going to do now is give you a mapping of human consciousness within and around the human body. We're going to give it in the ancient way, not in the way that it's been presented over the last 25 or 30 years on Earth. We're going to begin at the base of the chakra, moving up. We will leave certain things out because they're not necessary right now. We're going to begin at the heart. The physical heart contains something greater than anything else in the universe. There is nothing more important, more primal than what is in this tiny little place in the heart. If you studied how a human being comes into existence when it's born, it begins as a sphere, the ovum. And then it's impregnated, and through mitosis it begins to grow, and it divides into 2 cells. Then it goes into 4 cells, which forms a 3-sided pyramid, a tetrahedron. It then goes from 4 to 8 and forms a star tetrahedron. Which is a cube. It then goes from there, from 8 to 16, and forms another cube around the original cube. And then it goes from 32 to 64, and it keeps going, forming these geometrical forms until it's 512 cells. At 512 cells, it's a torus, a toroidal field, the most unique form in existence. There is nothing else like it. And it's hollow. And that eventually becomes your body. But first, it becomes something else. It keeps growing at 512, it goes up to 1,024, and it keeps going up and up until eventually it becomes the human heart. It literally is a heart. And every one of us was in our mother's womb at one point, and we were just a heart beating. Science, medical doctors, could never figure out how this heart could beat when there was no brain, there was no arms or legs or eyes or anything or any other glands or any other organs, just a heart, and it started beating. It was HeartMath who first discovered that there is a brain inside the heart. It's brain cells. It's very small. It's only 40,000 cells, but it has its own intelligence. And so the heart begins to beat. But then, at one point, this mass begins to come out of the heart and emerges out and becomes the body, becomes the brain, the head, the arms, the legs, and all these other things. And that is pulled into the body at a later point after it's been developed. And so just from seeing that, you can know that the heart is more primal, more important than the brain. It was prior to. In ancient Egypt, when they mummified somebody important, like a king or a pharaoh or a doctor or someone that they felt was important, they would take all of their organs out of the body and they would put them in 4 clay jars, with the exception of 3 of them. That was the heart, the brain, and the genitals. And the heart, they would put back in the body. The genitals, they would put back in the body because they felt those 2 things were essential for the person to make their crossover to the other world. But what did they do with the brain? They pulled it out through the nose and they threw it in the garbage can. That's how important it was to the ancient world. Today, we think that the brain is the most important thing, that our technological advances prove that we are the greatest thing that's ever been on Earth. All I can tell you is we're not even close to the greatest thing that's ever been on Earth. And it doesn't have anything to do with the brain. And so the heart is formed, but the rest of the mapping goes like this. Inside of the heart, there's a very special place. Science, HeartMath, has determined that this place exists. They're not exactly sure precisely where it is because it's so tiny. It's a little tiny place. Maybe they do know that now, but a few years ago they didn't know. I'm not really sure. And it produces the largest electromagnetic field that the body produces, much bigger than anything the brain puts out. It's about roughly 8 to 10 feet in diameter, and it's a huge toroidal field with another toroidal field inside of it. Tomorrow I'll show you pictures of this. And that tiny place is the key to all levels of consciousness there are, on every single level of existence there is. It is the key, no matter what level you're trying to go to from one to another, it is always this tiny space in the heart that enables you to be able to move to another level of existence, another way of interpreting the one reality. There's over 100,000 different ways that life has figured out how to perceive this one reality. We're looking at it through a polarized lens, but there's about 100,000, 200 or 300 more, 100,000, 200 different ways that it can be perceived at. Each one has a different Merkaba field around it that's associated with that particular way or that lens of interpreting the one reality. The next thing is the tongue. This is the next step, the next most important part of understanding and remembering who you really are. When you first think about it, I mean, why does the tongue have anything to do? Why not your ear or something like that? Well, I mean, why the tongue? Well, it's very clear. First of all, there is a sac that encloses the heart and comes up, and the whole thing forms up and becomes the tongue. And so there's a physiological connection that you can see. I forgot what this is called right now, but there's a name for it. And you can actually see that they're connected. But when that little description I gave you just a few minutes ago about how we went from a sphere to all the various levels, and we became a heart, and then the body emerges out of it, the first thing that comes out, is it an arm, a leg, a head, or the brain? What comes out first? The very first thing that emerges out of the heart is the tongue. the tip comes first. And so from seeing that, from pure science, it's obvious, you can see why there's a direct connection between that particular place and the heart itself, the sacred space of the heart. So the next thing to understand that is in the mapping of human consciousness is the tongue. The next thing that is important to know is the roof of the mouth. The roof of the mouth has something on it, whether you're male or female, that what I'm about to say is going to sound a little weird, but it's fact. There is a vagina on the roof of your mouth. It just happens to be there, hidden away. And it's literally, it's no other way to say it, because what is now beginning to happen here is there is going to be sex between the heart and the brain. Actually, it really is, and it feels like it too. And so the heart brings its energy up through the tip of the tongue, and it comes out, and the tongue becomes male. And it goes to the vagina, and it goes specifically when you're looking for, where is the spot on the roof of the mouth? Do you know that people spend as much as 20 to 30 to 40 years trying to look for that spot on the roof of the mouth and trying to find it? It's one of the biggest obstacles. We can show you exactly where it is and determine so you know precisely where it is when we get into the workshop. But it is exactly in the center, and if you know where your hard palate ends and the soft palate begins, it's on the hard palate just before you go into the soft palate. And some people, most people in this room, I would say at least 85%, maybe 90%, it's just flat. You don't know it's there. But when you stimulate it, it swells up and it becomes this little bump. It literally becomes the clitoris. And some people have a hole there. How many people have a hole right at that place? Oh, come on, there's more than one. Usually it's about 10%, about 1 out of 10 people. Pardon? Did you say it's at the top of the palate? It's at the roof of the mouth, and it's where you have a hard palate and a soft palate. The hard palate is like a drum stretched tight, and then when you keep going with your tongue, if you've got one long enough, going down there, you'll feel that it gets kind of ripply and soft. As soon as you feel that, you've gone too far. You have to come back, and it's right just on this side. If you start massaging that place, what now happens to get the rest of the mapping, this would probably be a good place for questions. So if I don't know how, I'm going to have to go through all of this, and the only way I can do this is in a longer experienced, longer period of time. This usually literally takes the traditional systems like Kundalini Yoga, Kriya Yoga, and these kind of steps. If you talk to those teachers and say, how long does it take for someone to master this? Seldom is it less than 20 years. But I found that if you are clear enough and you understand what it is, this is part of the problem, is most of the gurus or the teachers that are teaching this don't understand it. If you really get in there and say, what is this, what's happening? They don't know. They've just been told that this is what you do, and they don't really know what's going on. But if you really understand what's going on, you can get it. And usually in a group this big, I can get about 35% in one day. They'll know exactly how to do it. And the rest of them, about another 35% in usually a couple months. And then the other ones have problems because they've got emotional problems they got to work on. And in spirituality, you must deal with your emotional problems or you'll find a ceiling that you can't go any further on. It's not an option. You have to do it if you have an emotional problem, which just about everybody does. And okay, we're going to keep going now. That roof of that particular spot goes up through a chain up to the thalamus glands up here. There's these two egg-shaped glands that are a little bit toward the back of the head. And those glands, when it's being stimulated, when you are in your heart space and you are moving the tongue on that particular spot, it stimulates those glands and they start firing alpha waves. And it fires massive alpha waves. It's like 3,500 to 4,000. It's not normal. It's very high. And you have the 4 quadrants of the brain begin to fire. And as soon as they fire in a balanced, strong, powerful way, which might not happen in one day. It might take a long time. But when it happens, a green light will appear in front of you. If you don't see the green light, you are not creating enough alpha. You got to be happier. That's what alpha is. It's joy. It's like, remember in Peter Pan, think happy thoughts. It's true, really. If you want to fly, you have to be joyful. And so this is a place where you have to be childlike. The more serious you are, the more degrees you have and all these kind of things, and the more you're into them, the more likely it's going to be hard for you. You need to let go of all those kind of things and just get into this sensation and this feeling. The moment that happens, the next thing you do is you shift your attention from while you're in your heart to your pineal gland. And the gland itself literally is the third eye. It is from Jacob Liberman and his work through Light, a book he wrote called Light, the Medicine of the Future, and he's one of the experts in the world on this. The pineal gland is an eyeball. It is hollow. It has color receptors inside of it. It has a lens on top of it for focusing light, but it's looking up and not instead of out this way. It's 90 degrees off to these eyes. It's a single eye looking up, and it's situated in such a place that it's in the prana tube. So the light that it's receiving, that it's concerned with, is not physical light from the sun, but the light of prana, or life force energy, that's moving down that tube. You have to, with intention, just as you take your intention now, and I move my eyes over here, that same intention that moved that eye over there can move that eye inside there too. With your intention, you move it so that it turns and looks out through your third eye. Where is that opening? Take the tip of your tip of your nose to your chin, and then move that up to the tip of your nose, and without changing the shape, bring it down. That is extremely close to the precise place where the eye looks out of. It is for this reason that the Hindus and the Tibetans have you slightly cross your eyes so that you're looking up to this place. Because if you try to do it and you're looking out through your normal eyes, nothing happens. And so you must look out through way up here, which is unusual. And that's where, so you turn the eye and you focus it in that direction. What is in the way between that spot is another gland, the pituitary gland. And that gland has a chakra point also. It's actually, you're doing it from the chakra to the chakras. It's not, the gland has to do it, but it's actually, the chakra is right in the pineal. It's almost on top of it, it's right there. The gland for the pineal gland and the pineal chakra are separated by a space. It's the same way with your heart and the heart chakra. Every chakra has a gland or a organ that is associated with it. And so the eyeball turns and it looks at that place while you're in your heart, rubbing the tip of the tongue on that particular place and firing alpha waves that get to a certain level, and you get this green light, and you're looking over there at that place when it's right, when alpha is strong enough, when all the parts of the brain come together at one time, this amazing thing happens. And what happens is this sort of foggy green light that's in front of you suddenly turns into a spiral. This is what happens almost all the time. And it makes a spiral like this, and it goes right down to the chakra of the pituitary gland, and it links with it. You can feel it. It's almost like a jolt when it links with it, and it links with it. Sometimes the spiral won't be a spiral. For a few people, it becomes concentric rings. So you'll see it'll turn into a circle, and then a smaller circle, then a smaller one, but they're spaced out so that it goes like that, and you'll link with it. And there's a few other things it can do. They're rare. Sometimes it'll turn into a square, and you'll see like a Hindu mandala in there. It's amazing. The first time I ever saw this. And then a little one inside, and a square, little square, little square, little square, and we'll go down to it. There's also reports that people see it as a tube that goes between the two. It's psychic phenomena. It doesn't matter. But you will know for sure when you see this happen. It won't be, gee, did that really happen? No, you'll know, you'll feel it, and you can see it. when the pineal connects to the pituitary while you've got all these things going at once, it connects. The next step is really easy. There's another chakra in space in front of you. From the tip of your nose to the tip of your chin, take that as your measuring stick, put it like this, and right where this finger is sitting, you have a chakra point right out there. And with your intention, you ask it to go through and from the pituitary from the pineal to the pituitary to this other one, which has a gland inside of here. Also, I don't want to say what it is. And when all three of them connect, at that moment, a series of things occurs. First of all, your head glows. Science has actually mapped this and have reported it. You have a halo. It's a very specific size. It's in a perfect circle, sphere. And if you were in a dark room, you could actually photograph it. Your head begins to glow in the dark. And simultaneously with that, and it's actually better if you do this before you begin this process, is the pineal gland has certain attributes that are not visible to most people. And even people who are very good at seeing auras usually can't see these because you have to know they're there. It's true with all things in with psychic abilities. If you don't know it exists, you can't see it. You have to have an inkling that it exists before you can begin to step into that world. So it's like a dowser. A dowser can douse for anything, but they can't douse for something they don't know exists. And so it's the same kind of thing. And so prior to this, the pineal gland in the center of the head has these 8 beams of light, and they're tubes. They look like fluorescent tubes that come out of the body, and they look like they've just been cut off on the end, and they're about 1 hand length long. About 1 hand length from here. The ones on the sides are a little longer. You got one in the throat that you can't see. And when you look at someone that actually has and what you have just done, by the way, is you've opened up your third eye completely. You are now functioning on another level of potential human consciousness. And it's an absolutely important step to take before ascension begins. Anything that happens prior to that time, from my way of seeing, is just beginning the process. But the process doesn't really take off until you have done this step. But there's more to this. Now, once these beams are out, they actually connect with this sphere of light that's around here. And there is a procedure for bringing those beams out. You can do it, and most people can do it usually in a single day. It just takes a little bit of time and practice, and you can get them all out. It might take you a few weeks to get them out strong, because sometimes they get droopy and they get kind of bent and things. And they're not this perfect geometrical stuff, but it doesn't, for most people, it doesn't take too long until they're out there perfectly. If you see Jesus, remember where you see the 3 beams of light coming out of Jesus's head? He just has his beams open up, that's all. When you're looking at somebody from the front, you can't see all 8 of them. There's 3 across the back, you can't see any of those. You can see the ones on the side, you can see the one in the front. There's one coming right at you out of here, and the one in the throat. And so all you can really see is those 3 beams and a sphere of light around the person's head. And then so at that moment, you have just entered into exactly the same level of consciousness that Jesus entered into at that level, and Buddha and a lot of other people. All the ascended masters went through this, all 8,000 of them or so. They're just humans like us. They just got a little bit further ahead. And then once that has happened, at that moment, you are now on a completely different frequency of consciousness, and many things are now possible that were not possible before. Now, most people that have got to this level have then taken it to psychic worlds. They've used their mind to look through this third eye. I'm not saying it's a mistake, but potentially it isn't the best thing to do. You see, this leads into pure creation, where you are able to create anything. You can literally create anything at all. You can bring anything to you you need or want or anything else like that, and it's totally okay. But it's much more than a human thinking. You can create planets with this, or galaxies, or entire universes. You can create, size doesn't matter in this case for sure. You can create anything on this, and anything is possible at that moment. But if you do create through your brain, like in the, remember this, The Secret, the CD, The Secret? There is a problem. And I think people that are doing what The Secret said, probably a lot of them are discovering that what this problem is. The brain is a polarized instrument. If you hold a brain in your head, it flops open into two pieces with a line right down the middle. One side is male, one side is female, the other way around. This side's male, this side's female. And if you use that or any of the lesser ways of bringing energy to you, what happens is you get whatever your intention is, but you will also get an equal and opposite force coming from behind you, and you won't see it coming. And you'll get hit with exactly what you don't want. So it's like you get everything you want, and then bam, you get exactly what you don't want. James Ray is a really good example of that one. And because it's just the reality. It's just the way it is. We have scientists, Dr. James Hart, who is a brain researcher who I've been working with for some years now. He's one of the two primary brain researchers on Earth. And they discovered that through pure science. They were able to create things and do it, but they found out that every time they did, they go, wow, this worked. Bam, something would come from back here. And they go, where did that come from? You know, how did that happen? Well, it'll happen every single time. It's just like a law of physics. If you have a force going this way, you have an equal and opposite force going the other way. If you push against a wall, it pushes back at you at the same amount. But if you shoot a rocket down, it goes up this way. There's always an equal and opposite force, and it's because the instrument you are doing with is polarized. However, once the third eye is open, and this is